They glance once, and suddenly the whole room feels different for no reason. You have probably felt that strange jolt when someone reacts fast, then tries acting normal. Nothing obvious happened, yet your body noticed something before your mind could explain it fully. That is because one glance can leak conflict, interest, fear, guilt, or hidden emotional effort. Most people call it overthinking, but you can feel when a reaction does not fit. And usually, that feeling is not paranoia, intuition magic, or some dramatic sixth sense either. It is your brain catching a mismatch between words, eyes, timing, and emotional control instantly. A glance is tiny, but it often shows what the person is managing underneath everything. That is why some conversations feel normal on the surface, yet strangely charged underneath somehow. You may have noticed it after a compliment, a question, a joke, or sudden silence. Someone smiles, but their eyes leave first, as if the moment became harder than expected. Someone agrees immediately, but their face lags behind, like a door closing a second later. And that small delay matters more than people think, because emotion reveals itself before language. When those layers separate, even briefly, you are seeing effort, not ease, inside them somewhere. And effort always points to something meaningful, even when the person seems calm and polished. A quick eye movement during conversation can mean surprise, but not always simple surprise either. Sometimes the eyes move first because the truth hit faster than their social mask could. They heard your words, but another part of them heard risk, exposure, attraction, or criticism. That is the hidden tension people miss when they reduce glance to confidence or dishonesty. Human reactions are rarely clean because people often feel two things at the same time. A person can like you and fear being seen by you in the same second. They can want approval, resent needing it, and still try to look completely relaxed. And that mixed state creates the tiny reactions your nervous system catches before your logic does. You know that strange moment when eye contact lasts too long and suddenly feels less friendly? It is not always dominance, flirting, or confidence, even though people love those simple labels. Sometimes long eye contact is what happens when someone is trying not to reveal uncertainty. Holding steady can become a form of control when the rest of them feels unsteady. The eyes do not only show confidence, they also show the work behind appearing confident. And once you notice the effort, the entire interaction starts feeling different for a reason. That reason is usually not mystery for mystery's sake, but emotion trying to stay hidden. Think about a conversation where you ask something simple and the other person looks away. Maybe you asked if they were okay, or whether they really wanted to come. Their answer sounds smooth, but there is that tiny sideways glance before it arrives. That glance can be the mind buying time while emotion races ahead of the sentence. People do this when the honest feeling is harder to present than the acceptable feeling. They may want closeness, but fears sounding needy, difficult, hurt, jealous, or deeply affected. So the eyes move first, because the body reacts before the personality finishes editing. That edit is where so much social tension lives, and why one glance feels loaded. You can feel it instantly, even if nothing rude, dramatic, or obvious ever gets said. What you noticed was not just discomfort, but the effort required to hide discomfort. Now think about someone smiling warmly while their face somehow turns colder right afterward. You may have seen this after sharing good news, setting a boundary, or getting attention. Their mouth says something kind, but the muscles around the eyes stop participating. That mismatch does not automatically mean envy, but it often means emotion is divided. Part of that may be happy for you, while another part feels displaced or exposed. A smile can follow social rules while the eyes reveal the private cost underneath. That is why fake warmth feels different from real warmth, even before you know why. Real warmth spreads through the whole face without needing so much internal negotiation. Forced warmth often arrives in pieces, as if different emotions reach the surface separately. And once you see that split, politeness starts sounding more like management than connection. You see it in meetings when someone praises the idea, then checks everyone else's face. The words sound supportive, but the glance is measuring status, safety, and where they stand. People reveal not only what they feel about you, but what this moment means personally. That is why social tension can hide inside polite moments and still feel unmistakably off. Then there is the friend who agrees too quickly, almost before your sentence is finished. You suggest a plan. They say yes instantly, yet something in their expression falls. That fast agreement can look easy, but sometimes it hides hesitation they cannot show. Some people learned that delay feels dangerous because delay invites disappointment, conflict, or rejection. So they answer before the real reaction finishes forming, then their face tells on them. You might call them agreeable, but underneath, they may be managing fear more than preference. That is why some yeses feel strangely heavy, even though the words sound cooperative. The emotional truth arrived late, but not late enough to disappear completely. And once again, the eyes or face carried what the sentence tried to smooth over. This is where people get confused because subtle signals rarely point to just one meaning. A glance away can mean shame, overwhelm, tenderness, defensiveness, attraction, or emotional self-protection. The signal matters, but the pattern around the signal matters much more. One moment alone can mislead you, but repeated mismatches start revealing a stable tension. That is why one glance says so much without ever saying one precise thing. It does not hand you a verdict, it hands you a clue about friction. And friction is usually more honest than performance because performance is built after the feeling. You see this after compliments more often than people realize, especially unexpected personal compliments. Tell someone they seemed different lately or that they looked hurt and watch carefully. There is sometimes a pause so small you could miss it if you blink. Then the eyes flick, the mouth tightens, and the reply arrives a touch too polished. Why does that happen when the words themselves were gentle, even supportive, maybe even sweet? Because being seen can feel good and threatening at exactly the same time. A compliment does not only offer warmth, it also exposes what someone cares about. If they feel insecure there, their face may reveal the impact before they recover. That tiny reaction is not weakness. It is the nervous system protecting a tender spot. And you have probably felt this before, when praise landed harder than criticism somehow. The same thing happens with pauses before answers, especially after emotionally loaded questions. A pause is not empty. It is often a struggle between instinct and presentation. The person may already know what they feel, but not yet how to survive saying it. So the silence becomes a workshop where emotion gets resized into something socially safer. If the answer comes out unusually clean after that pause, notice the cost. Smooth language sometimes follows genuine thought, but sometimes it follows emergency editing. And emergency editing leaves fingerprints in the eyes, face, breath, and tempo. Another familiar moment is when someone acts warm, yet their body stops moving toward you. Their words stay open, but their torso, feet, or shoulders quietly choose distance. That is not always rejection, but it often means part of them is bracing. You can like someone and still protect yourself from what liking them might create. That is why attraction sometimes looks colder than indifference, especially in emotionally guarded people. The body steps back while the eyes stay present, and that contradiction feels electric. What you are sensing is not clarity, but tension between desire and self-protection. This is why subtle behavior feels so powerful compared with obvious statements or rehearsed explanations. Obvious statements come after intention, but tiny reactions often escape before intention can catch up. That does not make them perfect truth, but it makes them valuable emotional evidence. The deeper pattern is simple. People reveal inner conflict faster than they reveal decisions. You can hide an opinion for hours, but hiding a flinch is much harder. That is why one glance can feel louder than a long explanation. It carries the part of the person that answered before they were ready. And that early answer is often the most emotionally honest thing in the room. Still, the goal is not becoming suspicious, hypervigilant, or obsessed with decoding everybody. The goal is noticing when behavior feels mismatched, then staying curious instead of certain. Curiosity protects you from fantasy because one clue is helpful, but certainty gets reckless. A glance can show tension, but context tells you what the tension is about. So next time something feels off, notice when the reaction happens, not just what happened. Timing is often the clearest signal because honest emotion usually appears before deliberate control. If the eyes shift before the smile, or the pause comes before agreement, remember that. The first reaction is not everything, but it often tells you where the pressure lives. Then notice direction, because eyes rarely move randomly when emotion spikes in real time. Downward can signal inward processing. Sideways can signal social checking, and fixed staring can signal control. Again, none of these mean one universal truth, but they do reveal emotional strategy. Where the eyes go often shows where the mind went before the words caught up. Then watch for mismatch across the whole face, not just the eyes alone. A real smile, a real yes, a real welcome usually arrives as one movement. When expression comes in layers, or warmth stops halfway, something inside is negotiating. That negotiation may be fear, shame, attraction, resentment, uncertainty, or the need to stay safe. You do not need to accuse anyone, you just need to notice the split. Because once you see the split, you stop taking every word at face value. And that makes you calmer, not harsher, because confusion drops when patterns become visible. You stop wondering why an interaction felt strange, and start seeing where it bent. Sometimes the bend is harmless, just insecurity brushing against connection for a moment. Sometimes it is a warning that someone is hiding discomfort you should take seriously. And sometimes it is the beginning of intimacy, because real closeness often starts with leakage. People reveal themselves most clearly at the exact point where control briefly slips. That is the paradox. The smallest reactions often carry the biggest emotional truth. So when one glance changes the air, trust that you noticed something real. Not a full story, not a final answer, but a real shift in tension. And if you stay with that shift, people start making more sense without saying more. That is what Novi Mind is here for, the patterns most people feel but miss. If a moment like this came to mind, share it below so others can recognize it too. And if you want clearer eyes for human behavior, subscribe and stay close. There is always more hiding in ordinary moments than most people ever realize around them. In the next one, we will look at why silence can sometimes feel more aggressive than words. Because sometimes what people do not say is exactly where their real answer lives.